Today I'm going to install a Digitrax TL1 single DCC function decoder. This one has transponding in it. I'm going to install it into an Athearn ready to roll 40-foot boxcar. So go ahead and let's get started. So I'm going to talk a little bit while I'm opening up this decoder. So here's the reason why I'm doing this. On my test layout that I have, I've installed a BXP88, which is a detection and transponding decoding module that Digitrax has produced. And what that allows us to do is any transponding equipped decoder allows us to actually physically see where the location of this decoder is on the layout. So you can program this with the number of your locomotive or the rolling stock that you're going to program it in, and especially for areas where you have a large yard or a hidden staging yard, you can actually read what detection zone of the layout that this particular piece of rolling stock is in. So I'm going to go ahead and install this and we'll demonstrate how this works. So this is a single function decoder. You can see that there's actually 4 wires coming off here. You have a white, red, black, and blue. The white and blue are for predominantly you can use it for a lighting function outputs. You can wire up an LED to it. The black and red are the power inputs. So this is just a standard piece of rolling stock. So the supplies that we're going to need to do this is we have to get power from the wheels up to the decoder. A couple different ways you can do that. You can actually wire up the wheels yourself. I'm not going to go quite that in depth with this video, but what I have here are some Athearn Genesis 70-ton HO scale trucks, and these actually have wired pickups. So we're going to wire on some of these powered trucks, and then we'll be able to solder the feeds off of the decoder onto the trucks. Okay, really the only supplies we're going to need for this is obviously the decoder. I have our powered trucks. Need all the equipment to do soldering, so my soldering iron, some flux, solder, and then screwdriver to disassemble the boxcar, and that's pretty much all the supplies that we're going to need to get started on this. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and to get the frame exposed here, I'm going to pull the wheels and the couplers off, and we'll just set these off to the side. Being careful not to lose the screws here. Already got the other coupler off. Be real careful not to lose that screw. So you can see I got the screw with cover. So then this, now that all the screws are out, should just pop right off here, which it does. Very nice. Okay, so I'm going to set the top aside, set all of our couplers, trucks, and screws aside. We don't want to lose any of this stuff. So now we'll go ahead and we're going to have to drill a couple holes in the frame here to be able to get the wires for the trucks through. Okay, so here's the powered truck, and I'm just going to unwind the wires here a little bit, mostly just so I can kind of judge where I need to drill the wires. So you can see it's got a couple different ports coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and just sight this on the frame here. Okay, so really I'm going to want to drill them pretty much right where these 2 bars are. It's going to be a little bit tricky because it does have the lead in place here, the lead weight. So I'm going to have to see what I can come up with to see if I got a bit deep enough that'll go through the lead, or if I need to remove the lead and route the wires through a different hole. So let me get my drill and we'll get this taken care of. Sorry, I didn't actually video drilling these holes out. You can see you got them right here and right here. They were able to go through the lead. So let's go ahead. We have to be gentle because these wires are not very thick, not a large gauge wire. So we're just going to gently snake these through. You can see you got one. Let's gently get this other one in. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want this truck moving, I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble the truck, or reapply it, fasten it, I guess, re-screw it on here. So then that way we don't have any issues with the truck falling and taking some of the wires out. So you can see, got both wires. I'm gonna go ahead and get this truck screwed back on. Okay, got the truck reinstalled. I actually put both trucks on so it sits nice and level for me. I'm just gonna take a small piece of Scotch tape and I'm gonna anchor these wires down so they don't pull against the truck. So I'm gonna make sure there's a little bit of slack here. So you can see there's just a little bit of slack, but the reason behind keeping that slack in there is because it's gonna give the trucks an opportunity to turn. If you pull them too tight, then it's going to pull against the wires and then you're going to have all sorts of issues. So these two are the power feeders, and then that's going to supply power. We want the white and black wires on the TL1 decoder. So if you read the instructions for the TL1, it says that you actually need to program this before installing it. I'm going to install it, then program it. I think it's a little bit different. You might want to program it before you actually wire it up to a locomotive that already has a DCC decoder in it. But since this is going to be used as a standalone decoder, I'm not going to get too worried about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip these wires down here, the black and the white. I'm sorry, the black and the red. And then we will go ahead and solder them on to the two feeders and get this installed and the top back on the boxcar. Okay, you can see I got my soldering set up here. So I got the decoder wires hanging off this soldering jig. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put some heat shrink on once I get the solder in place. So you want to make sure that you have your heat shrink tubing already on the wire, because once you solder it, there's no way of getting it back on. So make sure you get that put on there. So I'm just gonna carefully, gently just sort of twist these wires together, and then we'll permanently join them here with a little bit of solder. Okay, so you can see I got the wires connected there. I'm just gonna dab just a teeny tiny little bit of flux on here. Just make sure we get a good hot joint. Got my soldering iron. We don't need too much, just enough to hold these wires in place. No, probably doesn't show up real well, but I got it nice. These wires are nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and solder up the other feeder wire here, and then we'll go ahead and get the heat shrink taken care of, and then we'll get the top back on and go program the decoder. Okay, so now that I got the wires installed here or soldered up, I'm just going to slide these heat shrink covers over where the joint is. This is going to serve two purposes. Number one, it's going to help protect the joint, but number two, and probably more importantly, when we go put the top back on this boxcar, this essentially will keep these two wires from inadvertently shorting each other out if they, when putting the top back on, if they get, you know, if they start touching. Here's my heat gun. Takes this thing just a few seconds. If you've never used heat shrink before, it's pretty cool. Just be careful, real gentle. This gets hot. It only takes it just a few seconds to start shrinking that heat wrap around the wires. Just don't want to melt anything. See that one sucked right up, so I'm going to go ahead and get the other one done, and we're ready to put the top back on. Okay, so I got the heat shrink in place. The decoder is all wired up. So what I'm going to do is just, and I'm going to do this off camera because I want to make sure I get it nice and tight. I'm just going to take some regular Scotch tape, get all these wires taped down so nothing is sort of free floating to get caught on when I put the top back on. So I'll get these taped down and we'll go ahead and get the top back on this. Okay, that have that nice and secured down. So we'll go ahead and get the top pop back on here. And we'll go ahead and get the couplers back on, and then we'll be ready to program this decoder and take it out for a little test run. This last coupler put on here, I got the other one screwed on already. Okay, there we go. We got a boxcar again, although now it has an LT1 decoder in it. So the next step, now that we have everything installed, is to go ahead and get it on the programming track, and we need to program it for a 4-digit unique address. So I've got the boxcar sitting on my programming track. So let's go ahead and program this decoder. We're going to set it for a 4-digit long address, and the number in this rolling stock is 4029. So let's go ahead and get started with programming. Okay, first of all, don't mind the flicker on the keys. That's just the frame rate of my camera. Happens all the time when I'm filming with the Zephyr Express. So we need to do two different things here. We're going to go ahead and go into the programming menu, and I'm going to go ahead and do the quick programming setup. So that's key 1. And we're going to scroll down to option 2, which is the 4-digit address. So we're going to change our data here, and we're going to add the number that we want to program. So this the rolling stock is 4029, and then we're going to write it. Okay, so that task is complete. Now I'm going to go out of this menu, and we're going to go into the option 2, which is the CV programmer. So with this particular decoder, when you plug in a 4-digit address, you actually have to change CV29. So I'm going to change CV number, change this to 29, CV data, and it needs to have a value of 38, and that's per the manual. So most locomotives, when you put in a 4-digit address, it automatically changes the CV to read or to become the 4-digit address. So in this particular case, this decoder, you actually have to go in and physically program function 29. So I'll just read that back real quick. Okay, so we change that to CV38, so now this will respond, this decoder will respond to the 4-digit address of 4029. If you don't change CV29, it would still react to the short address, which was the default 03. Okay, so you're looking at my control panel here. You can't see the boxcar. I have it hooked up to a locomotive, and I don't have track power on yet. I'm actually going to use my DT402 on this. The DT402 has this find button, and it will actually find what zone a transponding decoder actually is in. On this layout that I made, and I'm getting close to getting the videos posted of how I got this set up, but all of these are connected to a BXP88, which is needed for transponding. It's a Digitrax transponder. So when I apply track power, this LED is zone 0, zone 1, zone 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the locomotive, and then you're going to see if the zone is a solid white LED, that means it's detecting the locomotive, the rolling stock. When it flashes, that means that it is transponding. So you'll see both of these go between solid and flashing depending upon where the locomotive and rolling stock is. So right now I have this set up so when I power the track on, the rolling stock will be on this one, so it should flash intermittently. This one should be the locomotive, so it should be a solid because the locomotive does not have a transponding decoder in it. Now the key to all of this is you have to have the program or the address that we program active on your throttle. So 4029 is our active address. So I'm going to go ahead and apply track power here. Okay, so right now the locomotive is in this zone. We have a solid LED. The rolling stock is detecting it's in this zone. It's flashing. So watch this. If I go loco and I'm going to dispatch this, so I'm just going to hit exit. So now, sorry, the camera just went all out of focus here. Sorry, these LEDs are bright. It's kind of hard to keep this in focus. So I'm going to go ahead and select 4029 again. So enter. Whoops, hit that again. Enter. So now that locomotive address is active. So now you can see that that detection zone is flashing. So the other cool thing is when you hit the find key on your 402, it's going to tell me what zone that particular piece of rolling stock is in. So I'm going to kind of do a couple different things here. I'm going to start moving this locomotive. Okay, so the locomotive is moving. So now we're getting the boxcar is into zone 1, which is shown up here. So now that zone is flashing. And again, I apologize for the focus. It's tough because the lights. So now the locomotive is getting close to entering zone 2. So you'll see this LED right down here turn solid for just a couple seconds until the boxcar gets in there. So now the boxcar is in that zone, so it's going to start. And now it just switched over to zone 2. So really, really cool, you guys. This is really cool. So again, 4029, you can see that LED is flashing. Okay, so then just real quick here, I'm gonna just sort of show you by moving the locomotive here. So you can see the locomotive's traveling right to left. You can see that that detection zone is solid because the locomotive's in it. It does flash a little bit as it exits the zone. So now this LED right here should start flashing in just a second when the boxcar gets in there. So now that's flashing. So we know that it's detecting that zone. We can also know that the boxcar is in zone 1 now. Now it's moving into zone 0. So really, really cool stuff here, you guys. Really cool stuff. This detection and transmitting is really cool. So now the next thing is getting this wired up to, or getting, not necessarily wired up, but getting my JMRI programmed, so then you can actually read the decoder using JMRI as well. So really cool stuff. So thanks for watching, and please post any comments or questions in the chat box. Thanks.